How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Skyline Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Hartman, joined as always by my good friend, my co-host from the West Coast, Nick Normand. Nick, how you doing today, man?
Doing well today, Jack. I feel like I'm ready for the draft. Like I woke up this morning and I'm like, today's Thursday, right? Like today's the day of the draft, right? And it is not. But like my body, my mind is ready, man. I am ready for action to happen right now for these NFL teams, man. Doing well, had a great weekend. or NBA playoffs, not NFL playoffs. NBA playoffs are just starting up. My Lakers won their first game against the Rockets. Feel good about that considering it's LeBron and DeAndre Ayton right now and Marcus Smart. It is not a good team. Kevin Durant was obviously out for the Rockets, but feels good to get a win here and there and not get swept. So that's been my side paying attention to right now. Because once the NFL draft is over, then I'll throw myself into NBA playoffs. But right
Yeah,
now, focusing on the draft. How are you
for
doing?
sure. Yeah, doing well. Sports-wise for me lately, I played in a disc golf tournament on Saturday. Came in eighth out of 36, so that was pretty
Oh,
good.
dang. Really
Uh,
good.
yeah, I was happy about that. And I watched game one of the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Buffalo Sabres and the Boston Bruins last night.
Mhm.
And you want to talk about a great hockey game. Boston was up 2-0 with like 8 minutes left. And in a span of 6 minutes, Buffalo scored four goals and just came out of nowhere. Like they finally woke up and decided to play playoff hockey. And so it was an awesome come from behind victory for them. And yeah, but no, I'm with you. Draft is Thursday. We are here. It is this week. If it just can't come soon enough. And obviously, we're looking forward to doing our live
Mhm.
stream on Thursday night.
I was meaning to ask you as well, Jack, because obviously you're in Pennsylvania. The Penguins are like very big, obviously, in Pittsburgh, like bunch of Penguins fans there. But Buffalo is not too far away. That's just like north over the border to New
Hmm.
York. Do people actually care about the Sabres? Like, is there any crossover there when you get like to northwestern Pennsylvania, getting towards Buffalo? Or like, do people just not rock with the Sabres in your experience living out there?
Yeah, where I am in central Pennsylvania, and we're in south central Pennsylvania.
Oh, gotcha.
Like it's just Penguins fans. I mean, you'll see some Flyers fans. I would imagine though, the farther north you get, you would run into some Sabres fans.
Okay.
Um, I'm sure that, like you see with a lot of states that have a high cost of living, you'll have people live in the state that's bordering it that is a low cost of living.
Mhm. Mhm.
We experienced that when we were in Massachusetts. We had a lot of professors that lived in New Hampshire,
Mhm.
and did the commute, so I'm sure, I'm
For
sure
sure.
near the border you'll see some Sabres fans. You definitely see Bills fans around there. So
That's what I would think.
yeah,
Sweet.
yeah. Well, let's get into our mock draft. Nope. Let's get into Dexter Lawrence. Oh man, golly. Hey, having two kids under 2 years old is just you never know when it just catches up to you in a moment like that. Oh man,
Mhm.
Dexter Lawrence, the New York Giants. This all happened very fast. I think, especially
Mhm.
for NFL standards. You see a player that thinks they're not getting paid well enough. They sort of, decide to not go to the OTAs, stuff like that. The voluntary workouts. It's like, oh, is there something there? And then
Mhm.
finally, it gets to the point that they officially request a trade, and it's like, oh man, they requested a trade. Are they going to get traded? We'll see. And then, like months later, they're still on the roster and they work out a contract extension.
Mhm.
Dexter Lawrence, from not showing up to voluntary workouts
Mhm.
to getting traded, all happened in a span of like less than 2 weeks. This all happened very, very fast. Obviously, it's a guy that you are maybe a little bit concerned for the Giants, especially now under John Harbaugh. Like you just lost the dude on your defense.
Mhm.
Um, so you're definitely concerned there, but at the same time, it had nothing to do. At least everything that I saw, it didn't have anything to do with Harbaugh. It was about how he just was not was not getting paid as much as he thought he deserved, and the Giants really were dragging their feet and didn't really care to. And then, of course, with them moving on from him so quickly, it's clear that they were never going to pay him. So
Mhm.
he gets traded to the Bengals for a package that includes the number 10 overall pick
Mhm.
in this year's draft. Um, Nick, what are your thoughts on that?
So when I originally saw the report, I immediately see Dexter Lawrence for package that includes the number 10 pick. And I'm like, okay. When I hear package, I'm like, so is it the number 10 and something? Or is this the number 10 and you're sending Dexter Lawrence and a second round pick or a third round pick or something like that? Because for number 10 overall is a crazy return if it's just Dexter for 10 straight up. And that's what the trade seems to be. I've dug into the reports the last 2 days, and it seems like it's just one for one number 10 for Dexter Lawrence, which I know that generally speaking with this draft, it's believed to be a pretty weak draft, especially at the top where it feels like all the reports are there are maybe 12, 13, 14 first round graded players, and then it drops off after that. But the thing is, like, still trading a top 10 pick, you're still in line to get one of these high end players, even with like the number 10 pick not being a top 5 pick. You're still in line at number 10 to potentially get a Sony Styles, a Josh Downs, a somebody of that caliber. And you're trading away that pick, you're trading away that financial flexibility that rookie contracts offer, and you're trading that for certain having to pay Dexter Lawrence. You're certainly having, they signed him to a 1 year $28 million extension. You trade away that when you're Cincinnati, a team that chronically is dragging their feet paying players, chronically is trying to underpay dudes, just cannot keep dudes, lose guys in free agency all the time. And this is the opportunity you take to trade for a big name defensive player. It just feels really out of left field and out of character for the Bengals. For the Giants, I think it's a great return for them. I've seen a lot of thoughts of they're going to go for Downs at one of the picks and for Sony Styles at the other one and get both Ohio State guys in there because they're very interested in both of those dudes. But I think that it's just a wonderful return if you're the Giants getting 2 top picks in a draft where I think they're interested in a number of dudes at that number 5 pick before they got 10. And I think they're going to have the opportunity to get 2 players that they really were interested in because now they got those 2 picks.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the Bengals, you're replacing obviously the production Trey Hendrickson had, and he's obviously gone and he's on the Ravens. And I think they've actually done a pretty good job rebuilding that defense closer to what it was when they made the Super Bowl, when they made the AFC Championship. I don't think it's that good, but I think that this is a step in the right direction to where they have a lot more good players, I think, than they did the last 2 years. The last 2 years, it was Trey Hendrickson and basically no one. Like you had some solid corners, but they had injury issues. Jesse Bates was gone and he was really good. And so you're missing out on a quality safety like that. You had no other edge rushers that could provide quality play outside of Hendrickson. And so it feels like a good step in the right direction for sure for the Bengals. But I'm curious what precipitated this from the Bengals side of things. Is it ownership? Is it the general manager? Is it the coach that said, this is our chance to take this swing? Because if it's me perceiving them, I'm thinking Zach Taylor's on the hot seat and that like he's trying to move right now. Because I know that you and myself, we've been very skeptical of Zach Taylor, the coach, even though he's obviously had playoff success with Joe Burrow. It seems like it is because of Joe Burrow, because it's Jamar Chase, because it's that deadly passing attack, and not because of Taylor whatsoever. And so I think that this might be Zach Taylor making a desperation shot, and we'll see how this goes for the Bengals this year.
Yeah, I think that what this says is that it must say that the defenders that they feel positive about in this draft, that they're not going to be available when it gets to 10. Like they must, looking through it, Arvell Reese will not be available at 10. Sonny Styles, I don't think will be available at 10. Ruben Bain Jr. maybe, but there are certainly concerns with him that, I could imagine them being like, not sure. David Bailey, I don't think would be available at 10. Caleb Downs, they must be hearing a lot about some teams ahead of them really wanting him because originally it seemed like he would slide to 10 and be right there available at 10. But they must be hearing stuff that it's like that's not going to happen. they must not really love Mansour Delane, you know, like you get to safeties, after that it's Dylan Thieneman, and Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Like it's just, I think that they just really don't like what's available. Um, so if that's the case, yes, you financially are in a worse place, but you do get a proven commodity with Dexter Lawrence. It's not like the Bengals have been great at stopping the run since when.
Right.
Um, so I like it that way, and I like that they didn't lose any other draft capital, both in this draft and in future drafts.
Mhm.
Um, I still don't think I would have done it if I was Cincinnati, but I don't think it's criminal that they did it. Um, I think that though you certainly have to look at this New York Giants team that is incredibly young, has the most competent coach that they've have had since Tom Coughlin,
Mhm.
and most competent coach combined with good quarterback play that they've had probably since Tom Coughlin with Eli Manning circa 2014, 2015.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and you have two top 10 picks to go get some studs on defense. Or we keep thinking this is all about defense. Maybe they do take a wide receiver with one of these as well.
Mhm.
There's that
Yep.
thought as well. Either way, I think that this was an absolute no brainer for the Giants, and will be really interesting to see what they do what they do on Thursday. Again, they take two defenders. They take a defender and a wide receiver. Maybe now they look and they're like, we've got two top 10 picks now. We're willing to trade one. We're willing to take a king's ransom for pick number 10, now that we have it for the team that's like, ooh, this is the offensive tackle that we really want. Like I feel like everything, especially with this draft, but really especially with this situation, everything is on the table. And that's the fun part about the draft. It's why we're about to go do a mock draft to, make sort of our little guesses as to what might happen. But we never know. So
For sure. For sure.
cool. Well,
Moving on.
let's move on to AJ Brown. Reports came out today that AJ
Mhm.
Brown is likely going to get traded on June 1st or after June 1st, and it will likely
Mhm.
be to the Patriots. Again, there's nothing set in stone, but the reason to bring it up is because it does sort of affect what we will see the Patriots and the Eagles do on Thursday night. Um, Again, this is we sort of all knew that this was going to happen. Eventually, the Eagles would trade AJ Brown, and it would be to the Patriots. But that said, uh, I think the biggest thing to think about with that is it means that there will be no draft capital from this weekend that will be part of that trade, right? Because if the trade hasn't happened, unless Philadelphia tells New England, "Hey, draft this guy at pick whatever and put him as part of the trade," but again, that won't happen. There's no guarantees of something like that. So, that said, Nick, what do you think about this in terms of we obviously know that this will be great for Drake May and great for the Patriots. And of course, there were issues in Philadelphia, so good for AJ Brown to get out of there and for them to move in a different direction. But when it comes to Thursday night and beyond, what does this news then say about what will happen?
Sure. So looking at this news, I kind of perceive this as potentially coming out from AJ Brown's camp or maybe the Patriots. I just don't see why the Eagles would ever want to put out reports like this. The Eagles obviously are a team that has had issues with dysfunction and a team where there were reports after the season just tearing up Jalen Hurts that he was uncoachable, that he had a bunch of disagreements with other coaches and players. And I think Philadelphia is starting to get worn down more about Jalen Hurts than they are AJ Brown. There have
Mhm.
obviously been comments coming out from the GM, from Howie Roseman in Philadelphia, that they are not in the business of trading great players. And PKJ Brown is a great player, and I think he still has quality football left in him, 100%. But I think at this point, it's still too soon to really even, I would say, discuss pulling the plug on Jalen Hurts, because right now it feels very much like a power struggle of everybody's kind of like, Jalen, like, you're not playing good enough. The passing attack isn't good enough because you're not good enough, Jalen Hurts. But it doesn't seem like Philadelphia is at the point where they were with Carson Wentz when they drafted Jalen Hurts to be the heir for Carson Wentz back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like they're just going to try and get a good return probably from the Patriots, reset their books, figure out their finances this summer. And the trade for Dontavian Wicks that already happened feels like it's already moving in that direction. And I think that if the Eagles draft a receiver or pass catcher in general in the first 3 rounds, I would say that would kind of lock in to me that the AJ Brown trade is essentially confirmed to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, I think this receiving core is completely full if you're assuming A.J. Brown stays there. Well, right now, it's A.J. Brown, great player. Devonta Smith, great player. Hollywood Brown, serviceable deep threat, not good hands, but like he can be a wide receiver 3 for sure. Dontavian Wicks can be a good wide receiver 3 or so as well, or even better than that potentially. I just think that those 4 dudes combined with Saquon Barkley catching a bunch of passes, and then you have Dallas Goedert and Grant Calcaterra. I just think that that is a full wide receiver core. And so if you're drafting another one high, that to me cements the Eagles are moving on from AJ. That being said, I think that this could open up a whole nother can of worms because I feel like these reports and this power struggle going on in Philadelphia, if they draft a quarterback in the first 3 rounds, I think that that signals something clearly. When they drafted Jalen Hurts, that we didn't talk about it back then. We obviously weren't doing our podcast back then, 2020, peak pandemic. But I think that if Philadelphia drafts a quarterback in round 2, 3, 4, something like that, that the can of worms reopens, and we're talking about Philadelphia as this power struggle that it's been off again, on again, and they won a Super Bowl in the middle of everything back in 2020. Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of where my mind's at with Philadelphia. Slam dunk, I think, for the Patriots getting A.J. Brown if they're able to get him. Obviously, they're trying to move on from the whole Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel drama that happened in the last couple of weeks. But I think that Drake May, that passing attack with the schemes that they have from McDaniels and the offensive coordinator, I just think that A.J. Brown would be a really productive, really impactful player for them. And if they're banking on that, I think that could be a little risky because A.J. Brown, I think, has value to a number of teams in the league. So if you don't draft a wide receiver thinking, oh, we're going to get A.J. Brown, and then he goes to the Bills or something like that, I doubt the Bills would because they traded for DJ Moore. But a team like that, I think that it could get a little bit risky for a Patriots team that's trying to have a little bit of momentum coming off of a Super Bowl, even though they –
Yep. Yeah, and I think that this now means I was thinking that the Patriots really had to take a wide receiver in round 1. There were going to be a lot of wide receivers there at the very end of the first round. That now I feel, yeah, okay, wait till round 3 or even day 3 to take a receiver. That'll be okay. I won't think that that'll be a total mistake by them going forward. So let's move into this mock draft. We're gonna move rather quickly. I've got all of the odd picks. Nick has all of the evens, which means I am first with the Las Vegas Raiders and the most obvious pick that is coming in on Thursday night, and that is that they're taking Fernando Mendoza, sort of the obvious choice there. Nick, what do you have with the Jets at pick 2?
So the Jets at pick 2, the reports last week that really interested me were that the Jets canceled their interview with David Bailey. And I believe it was David Bailey. Or was it Arbel Reese? It was David Bailey, right? And I thought to myself, okay, they canceled their interview with David Bailey. So that means they're going with Arbel Reese, right? And then I thought to myself, what if this was a smokescreen? And then I thought to myself, well, Fernando Mendoza is going 1, so why do the Jets need to set a smokescreen? Like, that's dumb. Only like a really dumb organization, like that doesn't make any sense. Why would they do that? And then I thought to myself, are the Jets a dumb enough organization to set a smokescreen when they have no need to? And I think the answer is yes. And so I'm going to pick David Bailey because I think that they're setting smokescreens for no reason because they are not a good organization.
Yeah.
David Bailey.
Yeah, I mean, I could totally see that. The Arizona Cardinals have pick 3. I do not think that the Arizona Cardinals will draft at pick number 3
Mhm.
uh
Do you want me to pull
on
up some trades here? We have some incoming trades if you want. Baltimore, that's a big drop. Los Angeles, Minnesota. These are all for picks in the teens if you're
yeah, I
interested in them.
yeah, no, let's I mean we'll just keep it as is, but
Mm-hmm.
I would be very surprised if Arizona makes a selection at pick number 3. If
Mm-hmm.
they are looking at it, I'm gonna have them take Arvel Reese. They need help drastically on the defensive side of the ball, especially linebacker. Arvel Reese is very versatile there, and so if they pick at 3 and Reese is available, I think they will. But I would be surprised if they're actually selecting at pick number 3.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense there for sure. Tennessee, the reports are Jeremiah Love is the apple of their eye, and they're very interested in him. I think that this team with Robert Saleh would be really interested in Reese or Bailey. I've seen some folks mock Ruben Bain to them as well. I don't think they would take Ruben Bain. Just the arm length and the off field issues and him not being as interesting to teams at this high in the draft, I think moves him down for me. Sony Styles, I think off ball linebacker is something that Saleh would want to invest in later rather than early. If I'm the Titans, I don't draft Jeremiah Love. I draft Francis Mauigoa. But I don't think the Titans are a good team either. And I think they want a stud to pair with Cam Ward, to have the two dudes on the billboard that you see on the graphic for Sunday Night Football. You want like your dudes. And I think they want Jeremiah Love, pair him with Cam Ward, have them be the two faces of the franchise for this era for them. I would not do it, but I think Tennessee is going to. And so Jeremiah Love is the pick at 4.
All right. Moving on to the Giants with their first of 2 top 10 picks in the draft, pick number 5. If the board if the board looks this way, it's got to be Sonny Styles to me. They need help on the defense, but they've got such strong uh they've got such a strong edge room, and they've invested so much in the edge room that moving back, one line of defense, that looks like Sonny Styles at linebacker to the New York Giants at pick 5.
Mm-hmm. Cleveland Browns, it seems like everybody and their mother knows Cleveland wants to go offensive tackle, wide receiver, or wide receiver, offensive tackle with their 2 first-round picks. I don't think there's an offensive tackle here that specifically a left tackle, because Cleveland is looking for a left tackle that they would want to take necessarily at 6. I think that when it comes down to the actual night of the draft, that this is a very likely spot for the Dallas Cowboys to move up to. The reports were that Dallas was interested in trading ahead of an NFC East foe, and everybody took that to be the Giants at 5. But Washington here at 7, trading up to Cleveland, who it feels like Cleveland is a team that could very feasibly move down as well. Seems like it's in the cards. I would bet Dallas is selecting here at 6 on the night of the draft. But if I'm Cleveland, I think that Carnell Tate, an Ohio State receiver, needing a big player, needing a deep threat, needing a big body to pair with Harold Fannin, needing a dude that can just be a reliable sort of target, even though he might not translate as a wide receiver 1. I think he can be a really quality wide receiver who can get 1,000-yard seasons in any sort of system. I just think that Carnell Tate here is the cleanest wide receiver as far as no off the field issues, no injury issues, no major issues outside of running a 4.5 something or high 4.4 something. I think that Carnell Tate should be the cleanest player for Cleveland here.
Yeah, I would say that right now I'm at like a 90% confidence that the Cardinals do not pick at 3. I'd say I'm at like a 65% confidence that the Browns do not pick at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Um, with new head coach, really wanting to get as many guys as possible. Especially, I really like trading back with the Cowboys, because then they'd be right in a good place that you wouldn't feel like you're overdrafting if you took Caden Proctor at pick 12.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and who knows what else they could get from Dallas in the process. So that gives me the Washington Commanders, and I feel like the Commanders are in such a perfect place in this draft at pick 7. And the reason that I feel like that is because I feel like they've got a lot of needs and not everyone is going to get taken before it comes to them. And so with that, it means that it's just sort of like, okay, who then is left? And who is left is Caleb Downs. The Commanders are going to take Caleb Downs here at pick number 7. We were talking running back, we were talking wide receiver, we were talking safety. We were thinking about edge as well. I know that a lot of people feel highly about Ruben Bain. I'm not one of those people. In terms of getting him to be your number one, game wrecking guy edge, I think if you compare him, with somebody else, then I think that would be really, really great. But because of that, I sort of look at where Washington is. Okay, Love is off the board, Tate is off the board, that leaves Downs. If Downs is off the board and Love is off the board, it leaves Tate. Like just sort of however that sort of works itself
Mhm.
out. So you've got the Saints here at pick 8. What are you
Yes.
thinking?
So I'm looking at their depth chart here. I'm looking at like, man, this corner room. Kool-Aid McKinstry was a high drafted player in the high second. Rayzone Wright and Isaac Yadam being your other. Man, this cornerback room is weaker than I thought it was. But I'm gonna bop back to the draft. I think Mansour Delane here will be a good pick. I think Ruben Bain here will be a good pick. I think that the short arms are still scaring teams, and I think the LSU connection for New Orleans is a good pick. So I'm just going to go Mansour Delane here, clean player.
Yep, stay in Louisiana. Kansas City comes up. This is interesting. So I feel like Kansas City is in a place where they could maybe like reach a little bit, right? They could, not too much, but they're just a couple spots away here that I
Mhm.
feel like they could be like, hey, you know what? Let's try this. If it doesn't work out, we'll still get good enough production from them that it'll make everything else work. And I know that you're circling Jordan Tyson there on your screen, and I know that a lot of people are thinking Jordan Tyson here to Kansas City. But if I was Kansas City, looking at this draft, especially the way that it looks right now, I think this is where we might see Ruben Bain Jr. come off the board.
Mhm.
They need help at edge. And again, they've got a really strong defense right now. It's just not perfect. I think if Mansour Delane was still available, I would certainly have him going there because of, trading McDuffie this offseason, but he's not. So I'm going to have Kansas City take Ruben Bain Jr.
Mhm. Yep. I think that's an easy pick for them. They need more pass rush juice. They need a big, strong dude that can just rush with power for sure.
And as we've always said, as I have said every episode since we started doing draft coverage, there will be other wide receivers for them to draft later.
Yes. Yes, yes. So we get to the New York Giants. This is obviously the pick we just talked about with Cincinnati that they got for trading away Dexter Lawrence. Obviously, both Ohio State or all the Ohio State players more or less are gone. Carnell Tate, I think that's an interesting player for them. Caleb Downs, they drafted Sony Styles already. If I were them, Francis Mauigoa, you can plug him in at guard, and then when Illuminor leaves in a year or two, then you can plug him into right tackle. That's what I would do. But I think that Jordan Tyson here is actually going to be the pick for me. I'm I'm very, very high on Jordan Tyson. I think by far he's the most complete wide receiver in this draft. I think he is a top 5 caliber player in this draft. If you take away the medical concerns, I think he's that good as a pure wide receiver. I also, based on the rumors and what's going on with the news right now, I would bet that he's a top 10 pick. I think here at 9 or 10 is where we're going to see Jordan Tyson going. New York's been heavily linked to him, but now that they have 5 and 10, I think 10 is a prime spot. I think Kansas City's another spot where I think they want to fix this offense and be able to say, okay, Patrick Mahomes, you're coming off a torn ACL. And it's going to be, we have a good run game. Travis Kelsey, like you're on your last legs, but like you can still be solid for us for a year and help out Rashee Rice and Worthy. And like, man, I think Jordan Tyson there would be an amazing pick too. But Jordan Tyson to the New York Giants here at 10.
All right, so that gives me Miami. This is going to be really easy. Let's keep CC Maui Noah in South Beach.
Mhm.
He is going to be Miami Dolphin in this, exercise. They just need
Mhm.
a lot of help on the offensive line. I think that this could be a really great place for them to put him at tackle for a year, see how it goes. If it doesn't, move him into guard and then address tackle again the following draft. Remember,
Mhm.
I was sort of laying out how I think the Dolphins are sort of in like okay, let's build really well for the next 2 years, so that year three we can draft that rookie quarterback and give him an amazing situation to step into.
Mhm.
And so let's invest in the offensive line now and give it a year or two to work out the kinks that we need to with CC Maui Noah, who is a great prospect,
Mhm.
to sort of see where he is most suited on
Mhm.
this offensive line.
Mhm. Yep. Easy pick in my own personal mock draft that I did that I sent to you. CC Malinois falling to 11. I think that it's heavily on the board, even though I think he's a pretty darn high end player. I just think that other teams are prioritizing other spots, and they really shouldn't. He's a really good physical player.
Hmm.
Dallas, we're talking about defense, defense, defense. As you've said the last couple of years, Cincinnati, you get one offensive line pick somewhere in this draft, and then all defense. Like your defense is too bad. Dallas, I think defense is heavily going to be leaned on this draft, especially with their 2 first-round picks. I look at this team, and Jermod McCoy, I think, scares Dallas a little too much. They took a corner with injury issues last year, and Deron Bland, he's had injury issues as of recently. And Diggs, he had injury issues that caused him to be traded, I think, technically to the Packers. So I think that injury issue corners are going to be off the table for them. I don't think Ioane is on the board for them. I don't think Sadiq, maybe Sadiq. I don't think so. And I don't think they'd go receiver or Fano. I think looking at this board, I think Keldrick Falk is probably going to be it. I don't like Keldrick Falk that much. I just think he's too raw. I don't think he has enough technique or has been coached well enough. And he doesn't flash star potential to me either in ways that I think are something that I would bet on. But I think that Dallas would bet on him. I do think they need edge rusher pretty darn badly. I just think that Keldrick Falk is their type of player, a raw, athletic sort of dude who I think that they would bet on, even though I would not. So Keldrick Falk to the Cowboys.
Sounds good. Yeah, I would highly expect. I guess not highly expect. It would not surprise me if we find out that the Browns are drafting at 12, and the Cowboys are drafting at 6. Cowboys are able to get their, you know, David Bailey, Arvell Reese, whoever that is, and then the Browns are able to take, their Caden Proctor, um, back there, or some other offensive lineman. But that turns us to the Los Angeles Rams, who, uh, to me, they're taking Spencer Fano. I think that you need to. They're at that point that you've got a guy that's really solid, can play all over the offensive line. At the combine and during the pro day, they had him do tackle stuff. They had him do guard stuff. They had him snap. Like all the teams there, they wanted to see it, and you get a really versatile offensive lineman to block for Matthew Stafford to keep him upright and keep him healthy for what seems like it's going to be his final go. Makes the most sense to me.
Mm-hmm. That sets up Baltimore here. I think there are 2 picks that I would heavily lean on. That will be Vega Ioane and Kenyon Sadiq. I think it's very clearly one of these 2 players. Like these are the only 2 players that I think would be slam dunks for Baltimore at this point in the draft. And I think they would be stoked with either of them. Their guard situation is better than their tight end situation, even though their guard situation isn't good. And they typically haven't invested in guard. They need more center play, and Vega Ioane does not translate as a center at this point in his career. I think they would take the really high end player at either position, but I'm going to give them Sadiq here. Partially, it's because I think my Steelers would love to get Ioane, but partially, I think it is just a great fit as far as a big middle of the field, athletic, can do the blocking stuff player in Sadiq, who I think has a ton of room to grow, ton of room to get better, and I think he could be a way better version of Likely, who was a really good player for the Ravens.
Mm-hmm. So that gives me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And here's the thing. I was feeling the same thing about both of those players for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And
Mm, mm,
whichever one you took for the Ravens, I was going to take the opposite for Tampa Bay.
mhm,
Tight end is in need of theirs. Guard is in need of theirs. They also need
mm,
help with edge and linebacker, but I think that the top two things for the top three things. Number one is health, getting healthy, but then yeah, tight end and guard. And so Ioane will be for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
mhm. The Jets, I think this is receiver. It seems like receiver is the spot to go here. Makai Lemon, I think, is somebody who I would probably bet on them taking. But the other dude down the board here is Omar Cooper, that I think could really likely be drafted here as well, because I think he's a really good player as well. I'm gonna go Lemon. I just think that he I just think that he can do a bunch of productive things from the inside. And I think Garrett Wilson and AD Mitchell can be your outside wide receivers. And you feel great about that. I think Omar Cooper can do a bunch of good stuff, but he's somebody who you'd want to move around more. And Lemon, I think, can just be great off the rip as a slot.
So that gives me my Detroit Lions here at pick number 17.
Mhm.
And this is really tough. Like, this is really tough because obviously offensive line needs to be addressed.
Mhm.
Obviously. And Monroe Freeling is sitting right there. And you'd think just run that card in. At the same time, Jermod McCoy is also sitting right there. I think early
Mhm.
on in the process, we did not think that Jermod McCoy would be sitting here, so it was like, oh, obviously the Lions are going to take an offensive lineman. However, McCoy is there. There are issues in the secondary. They lost some key guys. Amik Robertson, they lost, this year, who had been playing a lot for them over the last few seasons. There's still lots of concern, both on the field and off the field, with the kid. Uh, Gosh, I'm blanking on his name because I want to wish that we never drafted him from Alabama. Um,
Arian Arnold.
Terry and Arnold. Ugh, yeah. So it's if Dramon McCoy is there, there's a chance that they take that, and I wouldn't hate them if they did. But I'm gonna take Monroe Freeling. I think that that's the safer bet.
Wow.
Um, Again, I could see it going either way. Um, it's really tough though because as we've talked about, and you and I especially have talked about quite a bit, what they did last year to trade up to get to Slaw means they're a lot more stuck in this year's draft. I'd love for them to take McCoy there and then maybe be able to move up in the second round to get the Caleb Lomu out of Utah. Like I'd love to see them do that. I don't know that they've got what they need in the chest to be able to make a move like that. So with that said, Monroe Freeling will be the pick.
Mhm. Mhm. That sets me up for Minnesota, just a hand and glove sort of pick for me. They obviously lost. I say lost. He hasn't, I don't believe, officially retired. But having a white safety, replacing a white safety, I think Dylan Thieneman here is an easy, easy pick for the Vikings.
Yeah, I listened to the first draft podcast with Field Yates and Mel Kiper Jr. And Field Yates said a couple weeks ago, like, I'm going to try to make a mock draft where I don't mock Dylan Thieneman to the Vikings. I'm going to try to figure out what I have to do to make it so that is not the pick. If that happens on Thursday night, it'll be the least shocking pick. Second least shocking behind Fernando Mendoza to the Raiders, I would say, based on just the consensus around there. So, Carolina comes up. They made the playoffs last year, man. Like it's just crazy. But that said, there are places that they certainly need to get better and certainly need to invest. With Sadiq being gone, I really would have liked him to Carolina here, but he went to Baltimore a few picks before. This is also a team that needs help at center, but we don't really have any of the guys that might be able to do that. That would be worth using pick 18 on right now. We had talked about them needing some help at wide receiver, and so because of that, I'm going to have them take Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana
Mhm.
to, hopefully be able to play across Tet McMillan and give them honestly one of the best wide receiver cores that I can remember Carolina having in a long time. Even when they were successful with Cam Newton, it was Steve Smith Sr. and then some other guys that they would kind of plug and play there. So that could be a really, really awesome wide receiver 1-2 tandem and give Bryce Young some very admirable threats on the outside.
Mhm. Mhm. That sets up Dallas here drafting their second pick. With their first pick, I had them taking Keldrick Falk, who feels like a little bit of a reach being the 19th overall player. But currently, the way the board stands, Jermod McCoy's sitting there waiting. Obviously, I was hesitant with their injury issues they've had at corner. But I think that McCoy, the quality of player he is, getting to this point, you feel a lot better about the value. And you look at the other defensive players that are here available. Terrell, he's somebody who's falling down boards because of his injury issues, his size, his speed concern. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, I don't think they draft safety that high, but he's a player who could go in this range. Cade McDonald, little early. I don't think they really need a defensive tackle at this point since they've invested more in that position. Colton Hood, I think it's a little early for him too. I just think that Jamad McCoy, it's too valuable. Between the two Tennessee corners, I think McCoy's just the better player as far as like his ceiling and what he can be as a
Oh yeah,
cornerback. And so I'm going to go McCoy here for Dallas, even though they have injury issues with him.
makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So if you remember when we were talking about your Pittsburgh Steelers last week, I said that I want to see them invest in who's going to be the next guy on defense. Who's going to be the next guy that is that lockdown, incredible player that teams need to be afraid of, that's all over the field, seemingly always is affecting the game. And when I look at who we have here, I see guys with potential to maybe do that. But a guy that I see that I think really could slot in and do that, and again, this might not be positionally exactly what they need, but I don't hate it, is CJ Allen out of Georgia. Um, I really like him as a linebacker. I really like him just as a defensive player, and I think that he could be really, really good. But I'm gonna go with Emmanuel and McNeil Warren instead.
Oh,
Um, I think there's a void there just in general. I mean, they've got Jalen Ramsey playing safety a lot last year. Um, okay, he's old. They don't have Minka anymore. Um, I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren. I think he's going to be a very good player. I don't think he has the I don't view him and view like, yeah, this is going to be the next guy that's like that Ryan Clark, Troy Polamalu. You just think of, oh, look at these incredible Steelers safeties, right? Which is what I'm thinking for when it comes to that defensive player, right? But it is a need, and so and who knows, he could develop into that as well. So Steelers take EMAC.
mhm. I, given the way the board fell, it was just a hard situation. Obviously, there are a bunch of players who I think are awesome players who I would pick if I'm the Steelers. Jamad McCoy, I don't think outside corner is a position of need, but I really like him as a player. Omar Cooper Jr., I probably would have picked before Emmanuel McNeil Warren, but he went obviously earlier. Freeling, I think, as well. Vega Ioane, obviously, but they did not get here. Given the way the board fell, I don't hate it for the Steelers. I do agree with you though that like star potential being the dude, I don't think it translates maybe to that, but I think he can be a good player for sure. And McNeil Warren. Looking at this now for the Chargers, Caden Proctor is obviously sitting there. I think that I think that he's going to go higher than this. If I were to be a betting man, I think with the draft, that I will bet that he actually goes probably top 17. I just think that a big, strong Alabama tackle who probably will play guard but can play some tackle potentially is going to go higher than people think. He's played against really good competition. The Chargers need guard, even though he doesn't really fit as a scheme sort of player because it's a Mike McDaniel's more of a speed outside zone running concept type of team. I just think that the value's there for Proctor. I think that McDaniels will be gone in a year or two and get another head coaching position because he's a great play caller, an amazing designer of offense. And I just think the need for guards too great. And so I'm just going to go Proctor here to the Chargers.
All right, so that leaves the Philadelphia Eagles. Sort of the wide receivers that I thought would make sense for them got drafted earlier. I thought that Omar Cooper Jr. could be the guy right here, but he's gone. Tackle is a place that they need to address. Uh, so Blake Miller is kind of there. I also I would be surprised if the Eagles are drafting at pick 23, just because that's just how Howie Roseman rolls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know what he'll do, but I think he'll do something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So I feel like if they really want to go a wide receiver, maybe they would trade back a little bit so that they could get Denzel Boston
Mm-hmm.
later, still get him in the first round, but have some draft capital there. But I am gonna have him go with Blake Miller for our purposes right now.
Mm-hmm.
Great tackle with great experience out of Clemson.
Mm-hmm. I think I would honestly prefer Blake Miller to my Steelers to Emmanuel McNeil Warren personally. I really love Blake Miller. I just think the experience is awesome. He's a player that you can slot in who's going to be steady. He obviously needs to put on muscle, and Philadelphia can put on muscle for their offensive lineman. Being a Lane Johnson replacement, I can see him being their right tackle for a decade for sure.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to Cleveland, with their first pick, I had them taking Carnell Tate. That sets up offensive line for me, obviously, because that's their other major need. We look at offensive tackle, Yonicher Lomu. I think that Yonicher is probably the pick, just given how high his ceiling is, even though they need starter caliber play now. I just think the league views Yonicher more highly than Lomu as far as his tools. And I think that that's the sort of player that Cleveland would prioritize when they prioritized a dude like, I'm blanking on his name, their massive right tackle who's like 380 pounds, 6'8". I just think that the big, massive, traitsy kind of tackles is their way of doing things. So I'm going to go Yoniger here.
All right. Chicago comes up. They have a massive hole at center that they're going to have to address or on day two, I would imagine. Again, we're not seeing interior offensive linemen with experience snapping the football really that are kind of still available. If you wanted to try taking Lomu and seeing what he could do, or if you wanted to try Pregnon from Oregon. Um, but they also have some other needs, and a big one for them is defensive line. They really struggled to stop the run last year, and so a lot of people, and I just think it just makes sense for them to take Caden McDonald out of Ohio State here at pick number 25.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's a good pick for them. They need defensive tackle help bad, man. Looking at Buffalo, wide receiver they addressed in free agency with the trade they had for DJ Moore. Edge is obviously a position that they prioritized as well. They signed, why am I blanking on his Bradley Chubb. That's still a position that I think they would address. This is the sort of team that has prioritized edge. Messidor's a player that I think they could go with, but a player that I think is going to go higher than people think. I can scroll down here. Where is he? Malachi Lawrence. Malachi Lawrence has been getting a lot of hype. I've watched his tape. I just think the NFL is going to be really, really high on him. I think he's a round one sort of player. I think that it's not a sort of an issue that he played against weaker competition. I just think that he's going to be a really great player, man. And to get him at 26, even though it seems early compared to this board, I think Lawrence is going to be loved by the NFL. So I'm going to go Lawrence here.
Interesting. Did you consider CJ Allen?
I did, but I don't think Buffalo would go linebacker given the way the board is. I'm just lower on CJ Allen. The way I watch linebackers, I really like physical hit you linebackers that can really like start middle of the field and run sideline to sideline and just dust somebody. And I don't think CJ Allen quite has the athleticism or violence that I look for in a linebacker personally. And I don't think Buffalo would go there in the first, probably.
Okay, gotcha. Looking at San Francisco, they're also in an offensive line type spot. But again, you kind of look at who we've got left, and do you really want to use a first round pick on some of these guys? I feel like the answer is no, but also they've got a big need at edge,
Mhm.
and I think that they'll take Akeem Mesidor if he's sitting there.
Mm. He is up higher. Does it concern you that? Oh well, no. I think that they took a developmental edge last year, so to take a dude who's going to be really good right away is a good pick for San Francisco. I was thinking you were picking for Houston for a second, and I'm like, nah, they can have a dude that can come off the bench, be a rotation player, and learn.
Hmm.
And so if I look at edge now, I think TJ Parker can be that. I think Zion Young can be that. I think there are a lot of good dudes still available here who can be really good rotational pass rushers. I think defensive tackle Peter Woods makes a lot of sense. Denzel Boston, I think like he's probably going to go a little higher than this. I think the NFL is going to really like his size, his vertical ability. I don't think Houston will go with him though here. I'm leaning towards D line or edge. So looking at it, one of the Clemson dudes, or maybe Howell to just have juice off the edge. I'm going to go with TJ Parker. I just think as a dude who can be another dude in that rotation who's just going to be able to wreak havoc, be a change of pace dude, where your other dudes are going to come flying around the corner, technique, speed. And then TJ Parker with just a long arm move out of nowhere, he's going to cause issues, I think. So I'm going to go with Parker to the Texans there.
Okay. Well, now you leave the terrifying thought of Kansas City drafting Denzel Boston, and that's what we're going to
That's
do. I
true.
mean, if he's there, like, I think that that just makes a ton of sense for them, considering that they took Bain with pick number 9.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Casey Concepcion has been projected higher than this as of recently. I just think though that Colton Hood is a really damn good player, and I think he's going to go early. So I'm going to go Colton Hood here, who I think could have gone at 29. I think could go at 32, but he's good. He's young. He's going to be a quality player with a high floor for you here.
Okay, so the Dolphins get Colton Hood. So now we've got New England. Um, they were a team that was really looking at Yannickor, um, but he is no longer available.
Mhm.
Their defensive line needs help. Their linebackers need help. I know you aren't high on CJ Allen, but also I would be surprised if he is makes it
Mm.
this far. Um, and maybe as we near the end of this week he'll drop more and more. But I feel like he's likely going to get taken mid to late first round, which sort of feels like right here. And especially looking at the teams that it's like, oh, maybe they take Allen. This is the first that I look at a team and it's like you have a need at linebacker though,
Mm.
and he's there. Um, yeah, I mean, I look Cassius Howell. Maybe that's enticing. That's really enticing.
I like
Um,
Zion Young here a lot too.
well, it's not your pick, so.
Yeah. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But I think
uh,
you're having good thoughts for sure. Good thoughts.
yeah, it's tough because like you won't take Caleb Lomu here. Um,
Mm.
I don't think. Um, yeah, they're gonna take. I'll have them take Howell out of A&M. Howell had a lot of production, um, um, and is sort of like the mirror image of the kid out of A&M that the Bengals took last year, and
Mhm.
that he actually produced and played lots of games. So,
Mm. Looking at Seattle here, last pick of the first round. I think that we're very clearly in the range with these last couple of picks in the first round. That this is where you could see a team like an Arizona trading up to take Ty Simpson, the Alabama quarterback. I think that Simpson, I just don't think there is a way that a team that is drafting currently in the first round is taking Simpson. I think a team's going to have to trade up. I think it's pretty likely it's Arizona. It seems like Arizona is dropping all the signs they're interested in him. I I think Seattle is very likely to trade back as well. They have the fewest number of picks in the entire draft with just 4 picks in the entire draft right now. But if they're sticking and picking here, I think having a dude for their edge rusher rotation will be good. If we look at the war room, we look at their defense. They obviously lost a player in Reek Woolen at corner. Josh Jobe stayed, though. I think they could use another DB. I think that edge could be another spot. Jamie Sharif, Chenna Nwosu, Demarcus Lawrence. Demarcus Lawrence is older. Derek Hall's good. They like a deeper rotation there, I think, though. Running back's obviously a big need as well. So if I look at it, who am I going to prioritize? This is obviously the last pick, so I can think about it a little bit. Jadarian Price, I think, is a good player that it seems like is projected to go a little later now. Corner and Idley in one of these spots. So looking at the players available here, I think a big, powerful defensive end like Zion Young, he's going to be my pick here. I just think he's really, really good with a high floor. He's the type of player I like. He's the type of player I think that Seattle would prioritize. And so that is the draft for us.
All right. All right. So, briefly, let's just to assess Nick, who is sort of the most surprising guy that fell that did not get taken here in the first round that you're feeling really good that they will be a first round pick.
As I said, I think Simpson's going to be a first round pick, probably by Arizona trading up into one of these spots. Besides that, there weren't a lot of players, I think, who were really dropping out around one. I think we got to a lot of the players. I just think that a bunch of these edges are really, really good who are probably going to go round one. I could see them dropping out around one, though, where Lawrence, Messidor, TJ Parker, Cassius Howell, Zion Young. I think that I prefer Cassius Howell least of those dudes, but I think that one or two of those dudes at minimum is going to drop out of the first round. But I think the league likes him a lot. I like him a lot here.
Okay. I was you mentioned him. I think that it's tough because again, deep wide receiver draft. I really think Casey Concepcion will go in the first round.
Yeah.
That I would be surprised if of the wide receivers he's the one that falls out, just because of his confidence and his motor and his especially his special teams ability. When I look at Casey Concepcion, I think about a guy who has the potential to be like a Rashid Shaheed, and think about how dynamic of a weapon he was for Seattle this year, in the pass game and in the return game. Avion Terrell is interesting. Uh, because of injury issues and also he had a really bad pro day, like a really bad pro day. Um, but also you might see a team that's like, I mean, and the thing that we need to remember with all of this is it just takes one team that likes a guy, like it really does. Everybody else might think that it would be insane to take Avion Terrell in the first round, but if Miami's there at 29, they're like, nope, we like him a lot, then that's what happens. So Avion Terrell might be a first round guy, sort of, who knows. There's also, of course, we do the mock drafts because they're fun, but every single pick is affected by picks that come before it, like pretty much. Like you said, the Jets, what they do at 2 won't be affected by what the Raiders do, but then it'll be like, okay, who's off the board? Okay, well now we have to shift this. Oh, this guy's gone now. Now we have to shift this. And so you could do these things 100 times, and if one pick is different, then 5 of the picks will be different. So, but yeah, we're really excited for Thursday night, first round of the NFL draft. We're going to do this will be our second year in a row doing our first round live stream, and we are super excited about that. Looking forward to doing that. And so we will see you guys on Thursday night live during the first round of the NFL draft. Hope that you guys enjoy. Hope that your teams get whoever it is that you're hoping they get, and that we can all leave Thursday night and this weekend entirely happy with the decisions our team made without any concern or frustrations whatsoever, even though that is entirely unlikely. So until Thursday, we will talk to you guys next time. Have a good one, everybody.